have the rest. Whoops. We also have the rest of our fall sessions coming up, so you're welcome to join us for any of those. And those of you who are Michigan students, we encourage you to apply for our winter mentoring program. So those will be in person, and you will get to meet with our wonderful graduate student mentors in small groups. And you'll also have some other workshops that will really help you build up your skills and get ready for applying for research positions. So what we're going to focus on today is sort of the different stages of getting ready for graduate school. Can I see you guys, if you don't mind doing a raised hand, how many of you are in your senior year? So some folks are. Okay. How many of you are either sophomores or juniors? Got some of those as well? Great. All right, so it's terrific. So the most important, the crunch time is when you get to your senior year, but you can actually start as early as your freshman or sophomore year. So when you're in your freshman and sophomore year, you want to be building your skills and starting to get involved in research, starting to figure out which kinds of research you really find interesting. And that's really a good time to just be exploring and building your initial skills. Then when you get to your junior year, you should really start settling in more on a research topic or area. Hopefully by that time you will be in a lab and start talking to your mentor about doing a more independent project or maybe even an honors thesis. And then a senior year is when it sort of all comes together and you complete your independent study or your senior thesis, and you spend some time applying as well. On the other hand, if you're in your senior year and you're like, whoa, I have not been doing that other stuff already, I am a little bit panicked. It's okay. It's not too late. What you might want to do then, and this is actually a good idea regardless, is do 1 or 2 years of what's called a post-bac. So usually that's 1 or 2 years where you have a paid research position, and you're just devoting yourself specifically to the research. You're not taking classes, and you're just learning what it's about. And in some ways, it's sort of like practicing to be a graduate student. It's getting really, really common in a lot of areas, and in clinical, it's almost required at this point. And so even people with research experience are doing this, and especially if you haven't had a chance to get some before, I really advise trying to take a look at that. And we'll send out a copy of the YouTube later, and you'll see some links at the end. There's places there to look for that. If you're a Michigan student, there's also an email list that I run that you can sign up for. So if you are thinking about applying or not, some things that you might want to consider. First is to just keep in mind applying takes time. We're going to talk about sort of setting up a schedule to get together your applications and prepare them, but it's really going to take almost as much time as taking another class. So if you feel like you just don't have the time and the qualifications, you may want to hesitate or wait until the next year, because a lot of times it does often cost money to apply as well. So some things you may want to consider is if your programs require the GRE, so the graduate record exam, have you had a chance to take the GRE, and are your scores one that are in the range of the programs that you're applying to? If you haven't taken it, or if your scores are not where you would like them to be, consider retaking the test and reapplying once you get them up there. The other thing that you can do is consider a full-time or research job or a master's program as another way of demonstrating your skills. And I've had students in my lab do that. I had a student who was a brilliant student, really, really great, actually completed her degree a year early, but she was just horrible at taking standardized tests. So she ended up doing what's called the AMDP, the Accelerated Master's Degree Program here, to show that, yes, I really can handle taking graduate classes. I can handle doing the research. And then she went off and she got into a top-rated PhD program. So there are multiple routes to get to these places if one of them doesn't work out for you. You want to have in most cases, a reasonably high GPA. If freshman year was a little rough and you had a positive trajectory afterwards, that's probably fine. But again, like if you've had a rougher GPA in some of your later years, and especially some of your psych classes, then you might want to consider if there's other ways that you can bolster your record there. And that's another place where a master's program showing that, yes, I can actually do the work comes important. And again, just to give you an example of a student from my own lab, I had somebody who actually failed out of undergraduate after his sophomore year because his head was not in the game. Went out, worked for a few years, said, okay, now I think I'm really ready to do this. Came back, finished school, worked in the lab as a postbac for 2 years, and he's now come in, and he's one of my best graduate students that I've ever had. So, yeah. Lots of research experience. That can be a big one, again, especially if you're going into a PhD program. Most PhD programs, even in clinical, are pretty research focused. So you're going to want to try to get that up. So again, if you don't have that, the postbac is a good way to go. You do want to have a good idea of what you want to study. Your research interests will evolve over time, but you want to have at least one thing that you feel pretty passionate about. What I often sort of say to people when they're in the application process is that you should try to find a lab where you feel like you're so interested in what's going on that you could be up at 2 a.m. and analyzing your data and be really, really excited about what you think you're going to find in it. Because chances are you will be up at 2 a.m. Analyzing data at one point. So you might as well be excited about it. And finally, have you had a chance to get out and like have some of the life experiences that you want to have? Graduate school can be a really great life experience in and of itself. You get to make some really close friends who are interested in the same things that you are. You get to interact with professors who are also interested in the same thing and are also really interested in mentoring you. But you are spending a lot of time in school and in your research. So if you want to spend, a little bit of time, sort of going backpacking or making that big road trip, taking a little bit of time before you go and do between undergrad, before you go into graduate school, can be a really good idea. Also, if you've never lived on your own, graduate school, it can be a big transition on its own. If you've never had to managing your own budget, cooking your own food, if you've been living at home while you've been an undergrad, that can be a big adjustment to pile onto the graduate school one. So that might be another reason to spend a little bit of time doing a postbac or doing another job where you have a little bit more of your freedom. So this might be your last good chance to do something interesting that you always wanted to try out before you sort of really get heavy into that graduate school and career track. At least until you hit the sabbatical. But that is a while into being a professor. So you probably don't want to wait that long. So if you sort of feel like, yes, I think I checked all of those boxes, then go ahead and start getting ready to apply. If you're before your senior year, again, this is a good time to start preparing by getting involved in research and starting to consider what faculty and programs you find interesting. So again, I'll just throw in another plug for our fall seminar series. Our next one coming up is going to talk about if you get a research degree, but you decide maybe I don't want to be a professor, what are my different options? How does this translate out into other career paths? And again, if you haven't had the research experience yet, don't worry, you do have time to go ahead and pick that up still. Okay, I'll turn it over.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Diana Ridiana, and I'm a graduate student here in the personalized social context area. And so now we're going to move on to talking about timeline in terms of applying to graduate programs. So in the summer, it's best to start looking at schools and programs and advisors that you would love to work with and studying for the GRE as well, if it's applicable to your program, because some programs have it as a requirement, others do not. So that would be the summer, trying to get a good list of schools that you are interested in. Then organizing those applications on a spreadsheet. I know many students, including myself, that had it all on a spreadsheet, kept it very organized. It's very recommended. Um, and you can find some templates online as well. So with that, you can include like deadlines, how many letters of rec, usually it's three, and all of those things, and just keep everything organized. So it makes it a lot easier to manage all the schools you are applying to. August, once the semester starts, usually in August, you start with the statement of purpose. So a lot of the schools will put what they are looking for in a statement of purpose. You can look at their department website or on prospective graduate student webpage. A lot of them will say that it's usually between 2 pages. So they want 2 pages worth of you talking about the work you've done, how it relates to the research, the people you want to work with, and all of those things. So start with a draft. And it's okay if the draft doesn't feel super strong. That's why it's a first draft. Everyone's first draft is a little bit wonky at first, but you'll get edits and you'll get feedback from people. So do not worry. Just having words on paper is the important part. So in September, you'll start contacting potential advisors. So that could be people that you want to work with. I would suggest you have one or two people, definitely two at least, 2 to 3 people that you want to work with in that program, and you can start emailing them. I would say read a few of their papers, or maybe like one or two, and so you can in the email say how like your research is closely aligned with theirs, and you read a paper on it on like one of their more like recently published works, and that you would like to set up a meeting to talk further. Try to keep the email concise because faculty do get a lot of emails. So try to keep it pretty short. Don't send like 3 paragraphs, but just something where you just introduce yourself. You're interested in applying to their lab and you would like to meet with them, preferably like on Zoom or if anything, if they're like out of state or something, or you can't meet in person. Along with that, during the same time, August, September, asking your letter writers for recommendations. So just asking people that can speak to your academic success. And like maybe it's someone that you took a stats class with, maybe it's a professor that you took research methods with, your faculty advisor that is helping you advise you on your senior thesis project, someone that can speak to your intellectual and research experience would be great to have for letter writers. And usually programs want three. So I would personally recommend you have four, just in case there is someone that doesn't get it in on time. You have the three and you can submit your application. Because a lot of programs will not let you submit the application unless 3 letters have been inputted into the portal. So I do recommend that. So the next thing is uh, the reminding letter of recommenders for your letter writer for your letters of recommendation. Or actually I skipped over. So the GRE. So sending the GRE report. So you took the exam, you also finalized your list of programs and schools. You have the transcripts ready to go. All of those things, kind of like just the nitty-gritty of the application. You filled in your name, you did all like the demographic information, all of that stuff is done. You remind your letter writers about the deadline, just sending them a quick follow-up email, just saying, hey, just put it on your radar. This is due in a few weeks. Then you finish your CV and you finish your SOP. So you have your statements ready to go, you have your CV ready to go, and November 15th is the deadline for U of M Psych Department. So that is coming up. So that would be, have everything ready by then. And then verifying the applications are complete. And then after that, um, hopefully, and I'm sure for many of you, you'll begin to hear good news, and a lot of them will be interviews, or just like having kind of like a casual conversation with people that want to learn more about you. So this is great because this gets to show who you are as a person outside of the application, because usually all they know is like what you put on your application, everything in written form, but this is a great way for you to see like start to show like the more like personal side and being like, okay, now they can put a face to the name. So when you begin to hear about that, sometimes you'll have to travel. A lot of programs are starting to do it on Zoom. So you might be Zoom interview, might be in person, depending on the program. And so usually through January, that happens early January, sometimes even late December. all the way through about March, you'll start to hear from schools, whether it was a yes or a no, or we want an interview, we want to learn more about you. And so usually in February is when you usually hear back from all the programs. And so if you are accepted into programs, it gives you some time to decide which program you would like to apply to, because the final decision, where you have to let the schools know wherever you were accepted, where you have to let them know if you are going to their school, is April 15th. That is like the universal deadline for a lot of programs. That is when you basically let them know, hey, I accept, I'm going to go to your school, or you decline. All right. And then, so in terms of finding programs, there are so many sub-disciplines or sub areas in psychology. So you do want to like hone in on an area that you feel pretty passionate about, relates to your research. So choosing something that you can see yourself delving into the literature and doing projects in that subfield would be great. So in terms of finding programs and what area you should pick, think about the career that you want to have and which program would be best suited depending on that career. Focus on what you're interested in studying. And again, you will be expanding this line of research through your PhD and then later your career. So you do want to pick something that you think aligns pretty well with what you are interested in. And apply to programs with faculty members who have similar research interests. So it could be that you are very interested in cognitive psychology, and so you pick faculty members who study like memory and cognition and things like that within those areas. And then sometimes areas are less important than research interests. So it could be like, for example, my work, I would say it's more educational psychology focused, but I am in a personality area in psychology. But my advisor does a lot of like education psychology type of research. So we have a very good match research wise, but maybe with the area, like it's not super closely aligned because it's not like it's not super important to be closely aligned with personality in that sense. But there are some exceptions, for example, clinical, because you do have that practice and internship after where you are going to be a clinician, it's very important that it does align with your research interests because you do have that extra step of having to go through a rotation, I believe it is, or in clinical internship where you see patients and or have clients and you have to do a certain amount of hours. So for some areas, it is very strict on what you study. In order to kind of decide what area might be best for you, you might want to talk to professors and graduate students in the areas you're interested in, and also maybe do some work and research in those areas, and other people who might have your dream job. And just have like a casual conversation with them to see what steps they took to arrive where they are and kind of gauge like what was needed and what was necessary in order to achieve those goals and be in that dream job. So the next thing is the training. So finding programs that kind of align with the training that you would like. So for example, I knew I didn't want to go into like clinical psychology because the practice part of it and like applying it wasn't really super interesting to me. I wasn't super interested in having patients or clients. I was very interested in the research and teaching component. So I knew that for me, going into something that didn't really include clinical was okay. And with a lot of people, maybe all three is very interesting for you, or maybe you're just solely interested in the research part and the teaching part. So kind of seeing like which direction to go. I know that for clinical, there are usually the most two popular options are the PhD and then the PsyD. And then the PsyD tends to be more practice focused and less research focused, while the PhD tends to be focused both pretty heavily. The next thing are some resources. So Graduate Study in Psychology and the Insider's Guide. This will likely be available perhaps through your school's library. They might have a subscription, so I would check in with them. But this can give you some information about current graduate programs, some stats on them. They can give you a description of the department, the areas that they have, and just gives you a lot of information, whether they are APA accredited as well, if you're looking for clinical, the internships that they offer, maybe tuition costs, financial assistance, and all of those things. And the next slide shows kind of an example of what that looks like. So for the clinical psychology program at Palo Alto University, they have the stats there when the application is due. So it's a great resource to use if you are interested in just looking at a broad scope of schools in the country and having an idea of what they all offer. So the next thing too is the Insider's Guide, which gives you a little bit more of a detailed idea of like the PsyD, the PhD, should you get your master's or the doctorate, getting started in selecting schools. So it's a good resource to have. And again, this might be offered by your school's library, so I would check in with them if they might have a subscription to the Insider's Guide. So the next thing is researching programs and finding schools. So journal articles might be a great way to look up where the authors that for the journal articles that you have read that you were really interested in the research, look up where the authors are at, what schools they're at, seeing if maybe that particular program is taking students. You can also seek advice from professors, advisors, graduate students. I would say for a lot of first year and second year graduate students, if you reach out to them, they will probably have a better idea of all the like schools they apply to because it's a little more fresh in their memory. But yeah, so just looking to see like who might be available to speak to you about that. And also the US News ranking will give you some information about programs if you are looking for to apply to the top programs in social psychology, for example. And what to look for. So faculty research interest on department websites is a great place. So usually you'll go to the department directory and I'll say like a few keywords of what everyone research interest is and see if it matches with what you are interested in. Recent faculty publications, also important. Not all the websites regularly update that, so I would check Google Scholar. Also, lab websites. Some of them might not be regularly updated, but I would definitely check in there with the lab websites to see if there are certain faculty that are accepting students for the following year. And of course, the PhD program requirements. The next thing is the finding the graduate program. So start with the long list, I would say, and then you can like piece out what you're looking for and maybe what schools are not the best fit. So this is an important step in applying, just keeping track of what you find. And this can help you decide like where you want to apply. And you can rank them on the spreadsheet as well based on what's important to you. For some people, that might be geographic location. For some people, that might be the courses and certificates offered. For some people, that might be what type of internship is offered after for clinical psych. So just thinking about what is important to you and how you want to rank them, and then choosing the schools that you end up applying to. And I know it can be a little daunting, but it having this organization in the spreadsheet helps a lot. Trust me, I did it as well. So it's definitely really, really helpful. I'm definitely a spreadsheet enthusiast. So the pre-application preparation is key. So the faculty that are conducting research in areas related to your interest is really important to take a look at. Which faculty are accepting students. So again, you can see this through their department website, their lab website, or sometimes if they don't have neither, if the information isn't on there, you could send a quick email and be like, hi, introduce yourself, say that you're interested in applying to their lab and see if they are taking students. And so if you are applying to a specific faculty, not general programs, so a lot of these psych PhD programs, you are applying to work with a specific faculty advisor, not necessarily the program. So you want to make sure you're a good fit with the faculty. And then again, you can send an email with your resume or CV to the professors you want to consider working with. And you can check out the publication record of the professor. How often do they publish with their students? This might be pretty important for people that are looking to maybe have more senior faculty that have been in like academia for a long time, or maybe like newer faculty. So that might be like a difference too if you see faculty that maybe they want to publish a lot because they want to get their name out there. They might be more prone to having more graduate students that can publish a lot as well. And then also the quality and the quantity of their publications as well. You want to see like how often are they publishing and in what journals. And what's the status of the professor? As I mentioned before, are they maybe tenured already and maybe like not super always like on top of wanting to publish, or maybe they're not tenured yet and they do want to get their name out there and publish a lot. So kind of it'll be a different, for lack of a better word, it'll be like a different vibe in the lab if you have a professor that is more tenured compared to one that is not. So it's just like seeing what it's important to you. So getting the final list. So find programs with the best fit. So as I mentioned, faculty with similar research interests, and this doesn't have to be a complete copy of what like you want to do with them. Like if the research interest overlaps, that is great. It doesn't have to be a complete like you don't have to do exactly what they do. But there needs to be a pretty strong connection between the research interests of the people, of the faculty you want to work with and what you want to do in grad school. And the positive contact with professors, and then also align with the criteria that you have. So GRE scores, research background. Also a huge plus, having two or more potential advisors. So if anything happens, maybe some professors move away from schools and they go to another department, you'll still have someone at that department that you can work with. So a lot of programs really push for you to have one or two or three people that you could work with potentially. And you should have a few safety schools, a few reach schools, and a few in between. So kind of gauging based on the stats and maybe GPA and all of that, what might be your safety, reach, and in between schools. But something very important, don't let people know which are your safety schools because it can come off as awkward and also rude. For a lot of these programs, you know, you're investing a lot of time, so you want to make sure that you always put your best foot forward and you're always wanting to show that you are very invested in wanting to pursue this PhD at that university. So you don't want to say like, oh, this is my safety school, so I don't really care much about the application. We don't want to come across as disinterested. So you are very interested in this program, and that is how we'll keep it. So contacting professors. So definitely email professors you're interested in working with. You can introduce yourself, say how your interests overlap. Again, try to keep this concise. You can ask for more information if they're taking students, maybe if you want to talk about current projects that they are working with, what their grad students are working on, and future research directions, really important too, to see if I were to join your lab, what would the future research of this lab look like, and how can my interests overlap, or how do my interests overlap? So, be sure to kind of take a look at the website before meeting with this professor or emailing them, just to make sure that they know that you took a look at their website. You don't state anything that's obviously on their website, so that they know that you read everything, you were digging around, and you're very interested in applying to this lab. So this is an example email of something you can say. So just starting with introducing yourself, saying who you are and what you're at. So you can say, for this one, I'm a student in experimental psychology, applying to, let's just say, social or University of Michigan's PhD program in social psychology. Very interested in your research you're doing, specifically work on close relationships. And then my personal research interests lie in the areas of stereotyping, prejudice, and close relationships. So you can keep it concise where you put like maybe two or three main keywords of the construct or phenomenon that you are interested in. And then you can follow up with, I would love to find out about the current projects you're working on. I think the program there's a really good fit with the lab and my interests. And you can end with, or would you be taking any students in the next semester or this cycle? And then you can end with understanding that you know you're quite busy. I attached a copy of my CV so you can review my credentials and research at your convenience, and then thanking them for their time and consideration for looking over your email and just like well wishes overall. So kind of keeping it concise, not too long. Make sure you attach your CV or resume, and then just making sure that you know this for a lot of your potential advisors, this will be like the first impression or first introduction. So you want to make sure that, you know, you keep it concise, but you also have all the important components to it. Alrighty, so Apply now. So now we're going to talk about what's involved in the application checklist. So statement of purpose, we have the draft of that we talked about earlier. So just having a draft of the statement of purpose, and then it's basically a way of telling the admissions committee that you are the right choice for the program. But don't try to limit or don't talk about your own psychopathology. I know that it's very tempting because this is psychology. You'll talk about the ways that it might have affected you on a personal level. But right now, for the statement of purpose, it is very important that you talk about academically. This is how I fit into this program. This is these are my research experiences. This is how I could contribute to this greater graduate community. And then transcripts as well. So a lot of schools, I believe a lot of schools want unofficial, but if they want official, just make sure you get those in. I believe you can do digital now, so they don't have to be mailed in. Letters of recommendation, they usually do request three. I would say have them in 2 to 3 months in advance just to give your letter writers enough time to write you a thoughtful and positive letter of recommendation. The GRE scores, if it applies, do check if it's required for the program that you are interested in, and the university application form. So as I mentioned before, just filling out the like demographic information, they'll just ask your name, things like that. And then department application information. Sometimes with the university, you'll also do department. So with the University of Michigan, we have our Rackham application, and then we have our Department of Psychology application through that. So usually it's embedded within the larger application portal. The CV as well. A lot of programs will ask for the CV in particular. Some of them will ask for the resume, but I would say try to have both on hand in case. But the CV is one that I most commonly see required. And a writing sample is pretty important. So if you took like a course where you had a pretty substantial amount of writing, or you had like a long research paper, I would just say choose whatever you think showcases your best writing. This could be a draft of your senior thesis if you have that. This could be a research final paper that you took for a course for research methods or for a qualitative course, for example. So just whatever showcases your best writing, preferably in a research setting, so like a research paper, I would recommend to use that. And then the next thing is getting organized. So having all the necessary documents in one place. So the GRE scores, the GPA, list of classes, login information for each application. I do recommend just having a folder where you can keep all of this. So like transcripts and your GRE scores and all of that. So you just have it readily available. And then you can collect contact and school information in one place and then keep it organized. So again, that Excel is going to come in handy. So creating a folder, creating a tab perhaps where you have all of the school's contact information in case you have any questions and need to contact the university. And then plan to spend about 5 hours every week working on getting your application materials ready. It does take a long time. It does feel like an extra class sometimes. It is a lot of work, but trust me, it is worth it. The approximate criteria for admission. So kind of to give you an idea of what many programs look for, a lot of it will be your prior research experience, your GPA, the recommenders, and their letters, GRE scores if they require it, and any psychology relevant extracurricular. So this could be like being in the psychology honors program like PsyChi that I know is a national one, and other extracurriculars as well. And so the GRE is an exam for those that might not be super familiar with it. That tests verbal, quantitative, and it has also like a writing component, essay component. And the importance does vary on programs. So to some schools, including U of M, don't require it. You don't have to take it. Some schools do. So it's important to know what might their cutoffs be in terms of the average scores that they tend to accept. And just know that that GRE score is just one small component of the application package. So if you feel like it's not super strong, that's okay, as long as the statements are strong, your transcript, GPA, and the letter writers have some strong letters of recommendation for you, that you should be good. So with the GRE, if you are applying this year, I definitely recommend to take it as soon as possible. The scores are valid for 5 years. And it takes some time to receive and send the scores. I believe after you take the exam, I believe it's 1 month after is when you receive the score. So it does take some time. And you should take or spend some time preparing for the exam. There are websites, books, and classes that you could take to prepare yourself for the GRE and some practice exam. Princeton Review is a great one that I recommend. The cost for it, free score reports, there is a cost to send it to schools. I believe with the GRE, there might be where I think the first two are free, and then after that, you have to pay for each program that you send it to. So do keep that in mind in case you are applying to like 20 plus programs. So the statement of purpose. So as I mentioned earlier, statement of purpose tends to be around 1.5, 2 pages in length. This will vary by the program, and it will talk about your research history, your interests, and why you want to go to this particular program. So if you kind of want to think about it as maybe a longer and written form of your CV, at least for the first part. And then the second part will talk about why you are interested in this particular program and how you're a good fit with the advisors that you chose. So some schools will break it down where you will have the statement of purpose. So that talks more about academic achievements, and a personal statement. So that's going to talk about more your personal story. So like who you are as a person and how does that relate to your career goals and your research. So you don't want to make it too personal in the sense that there isn't like a direct connection, but they want to know you more as like a person, because the statement of purpose is going to talk about who you are as a student and who you are as a researcher and scholar. And this personal statement is kind of getting to know who this person is outside of that, outside of like your college experience. What are things maybe that knowledge that you have or experiences that you have that kind of inform who you are as a person and why you want to pursue this degree. So, statement of purpose, a possible structure that you could do is saying why psychology and your specific research excites you, talking about your background and the research experiences that you've had, specific interests. I would definitely recommend putting specific, like a specific example, like I went to this conference and I learned about this specific thing and I wanted to pursue it more, or maybe like a specific example that you can think of that showcases why you're interested in these research topics. And then also talking about your plans for graduate school and beyond. So it's great to have like, I want to, pursue a PhD, go into academia, do research. And what about afterward? Like, what do you want to do after you graduate? What are like some goals that you have there? And then again, why this specific school? So talk about the faculty. You can spend about it's not a lot of space that you have, but you can spend about a paragraph talking about I would like to work with Dr. and then blank and then Dr. blank because we have a great research fit on this topic. So things like that. And for some tips, I do recommend avoid some cliches. The admissions committee reads a lot of essays and statements throughout the time that they're reviewing. And so it's best if your paper can, or if your statement can stand out by trying to avoid cliches and things like that. And then also showing, don't telling, don't tell. So kind of instead of being like, oh, well, I want to do this, this, and this, maybe being like, you can still say, I plan to do this later in my career, but I've already started to initiate that by doing this. So, like I've had like this leadership experience, or I've done this, I've done like you can talk about the things that you've done instead of just saying like the things you like want to do and plan to do. And then be concise. Again, so being concise is really important. You only get 2 pages. It's not that much room, but you can make it work. Have as many people read it as possible. I would recommend have faculty, advisors, graduate students, even people that are not in academia. I believe I had like my cousin read it, my sister read it, just so that you make sure it's not too jargony. You don't have too many words there that make it kind of like not really possible to read or decipher. And so you want to make sure that it is clear writing because again, what you're doing with this statement of purpose, you are showcasing your communication, your written communication skills. So you want to make sure that this is concise and it is readable or understandable to a larger audience. And then don't use the exact same statement for each program. So each program will ask like their prompt for the statement of purpose will be slightly different. So make sure that you are aware of that and you adjust your statement according to what they're looking for. Some programs will explicitly put exactly what they are looking for. So they will say like talk about your research experience, talk about your experiences outside of the classroom, things like that. So make sure that you adjust your statement accordingly. So some of the do's and don'ts. So an example of a don't. So this example has a little bit of a cliche opening. It doesn't really talk about any research experience, so I'm gonna go ahead and read it, and then we can I can let you guys know what it's lacking. So psychology has always been a particular interest to me, as I have commonly empathized with and wished to help others. While attending X University, I took several classes related to close and romantic relationships. I believe I am prepared to attend graduate school at X University due to my hard work ethic and academic success. In some of my undergrad classes, I acquired practice in psychology and developed a deep passion for the field with a current GPA of 3.71. I trust that I'm able to excel at X University. So with this example, the student kind of did more of the telling and not showing. So instead of saying, I'm in this lab and I worked on this project, they said, I'm ready for graduate school, but didn't really have any specific examples as to stating like how they're ready for graduate school. So you want to be a little bit more specific. They also talked about taking courses related to close and romantic relationships. It might be best just to say one or two courses that you took that would really stand out and be impressive. So you can say I took an upper level honors course or something like that. So you can definitely do something where you have a little bit more of like that being more specific. And so with the next one, the do, so this is an example of a compelling statement of purpose and compelling opening. So during the past 3.5 years, I have gained a wealth of knowledge from two unexpected sources, the female long Evans rat and the vaginal, oh, that is a long word, photo something graph. While majoring in animal behavior at Southwestern University, I spent over 2 years studying the mating behavior of female rats in Dr. Frey Gurachi's behavioral neuroscience laboratory. Initially, I conducted an experiment involving the influences of competition and cooperation on male choice as part of a course, and I continued to work in a lab as an independent research project. Not only did I design and conduct experiments, analyze and interpret the results? I presented my findings to other scientists and also had the unique opportunity to teach these steps to other students as a teaching assistant. In addition to learning that female rats exhibit flirting behavior and male rats vocalize ultrasonically after they ejaculate, I discovered my passion for the research process and for the study of neuroscience. So with this one, the person went into great detail talking about the things. So they were showing and not telling. They said whose lab they were in. They said what they were doing. They said they continued there and talked about specifically what they were doing. They analyzed data, they interpreted data, and they also worked as a teaching assistant. So with this person, they quickly went into talking about what their research is. And in the first sentence, you can see that like you can tell that this person is interested in something that has to do with neuroscience based on the very long word I couldn't say earlier. But so yeah, communicating these findings and the thesis you worked on and the research you're working on is very important. So another example is from the same student, I believe, talked a little bit more about their experience in the sexual psychophysiology laboratory, and then how that solidified their desire to pursue the study of human sexuality in graduate school, and talked about the human sexuality course that they took, and still talked about the research that they did. And there they can also add a little bit about a few sentences on what they did, so they know they understood the, oh wait, adding sentence. Yeah, so that you know you understood the project. So sometimes if you're working on a senior thesis and you happen to have your results already, it's very important if you get to say a little bit about what you found in your study, what the findings might be, even if it's just like one sentence, it'll be a good choice to have where you can like tell students about or tell the admissions committee about like what you did, and it also shows your communication skills. And so the person goes on to say that they want to apply the knowledge that they have and all the experience that they have to graduate school, and then talking more about like what are they plan to do with that. So another example of what you can say. And if you want to take a look at more examples from U of M PhD students, you can scan this QR code to see some examples. And we'll give you a few, oh, give you a few seconds. All right. Oh, no, you're good. Just in case someone wanted to take a scan it real quick.
We'll
All
have
right.
it up on the YouTube as well. So in case you don't catch
Perfect.
it now, you can catch it later too.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. So letters of recommendation. So who to ask for a letter of recommendation? Generally, you'd need 3 letters, and it's best if they come from research advisors, so people who have seen you in research settings. Graduate students or postdocs can help as well to inform the letter, and can also come from professors or previous employers who you know well. Again, someone that can speak to your academic achievements. So if you took a class with a professor, they know you pretty well, and it was a pretty impressive class, maybe an upper level stats class or something like that, and that would be a great person to reach out to. And do establish these relationships early. So again, you want to give them enough time to write a nice and thoughtful, positive letter for you. So you want to give them enough time to be able to write it and submit it. How to ask. So at least 1 month in advance notice. Faculty tend to be pretty busy, so definitely give them some time to prepare your letter. And then don't make assumptions. So if this is something so you can say something like, if this is something you would be willing to do and believe you can provide me with a strong letter of recommendation. So just like asking the faculty if, or whoever's writing your letter, if this is something that, or if asking them if they could write you a strong and positive letter. So instead of being like, if this is something you can do, because if it's something they can't do, then they can let you know. But you want to definitely be confident in your request and asking. You want to be confident, but you also want to be polite. And so you want to be, you want to say like, if you're available to write me a letter, I would really appreciate it. Or like if you could write me a strong and positive letter on my behalf for graduate programs. And then do not submit their contact information before they agree. So make sure you get a reply back in the email that they, agree to write you a letter. And then you can follow up and say, okay, I'm gonna, put your information in the application portal. So you will hear from University of Michigan soon or something like that. Over email can be a good way to ask, unless you're super, super close with this person, because it does like, give them enough time to look over the request. And also if you like attach your CV, they can take a look at it. If you want to meet in person at some point to talk about your interests and programs, you can also do that too. It depends on the person, really. If you want to email them and say, like, I would love to talk in person about me applying to graduate programs and, just want to have your input. But email tends to honestly be like the best way to ask faculty for a letter of recommendation. So I would say it's pretty much like the norm. And letter of recommendations from professors who that can like, speak to your, like if you're doing psychology, that can speak to your psychology knowledge and experience as well. All right, so To give letter writers a packet, once they say yes, you can let them know the names of the schools and the programs, the deadlines for each school, that's really important, and the application instructions. So are they going to have to mail this? Or is it going to be online? What other supplemental materials are needed? A lot of programs will have it where they require letter of recommendations to be on a letterhead, the university letterhead. So you want to make sure that the letter writer knows. And a draft of your personal statement as well. This doesn't have to be your final version, but just something that so that they can have a better idea of like who you are as a person and can write your letter with like more knowledge of that. Your transcript, your CV, and GRE scores if it applies. All of this could be sent in one email. And then for the names of schools and programs and their deadlines, and also the application instructions, I highly recommend you send over it in an Excel. I feel like I'm being sponsored by Excel, but I that's what I did for my letter writers, and it helped a lot. And I also included a tab saying like, was this submitted, in progress, or not yet, just to help them and make their life easier because I was asking for like 10 letters. So it just helps. So having it as easier as you can have them, as you can put it for them. And you can also send a reminder email close to the deadline. So I would say maybe about a week before the deadline, send them a nice friendly reminder that the deadline for the letter recommendation is due soon. And I would also include not just the day and not just the date, but also the time, because some programs have like a weird time where it's due at 5 p.m. instead of like midnight. And then after, so once they get your letters in, make sure you send them a thank you email. Gifts aren't really necessary, you don't have to, but a thank you card, a thank you email, or a thank you note is really nice. It's just really nice for faculty to hear that everything went well and that you got your applications in. And also, like, you can let them know once you get into a program, you can write them a thank you letter and let them know, like, hi, I got into University of Michigan, so I'll be going there this fall. Thank you so much for supporting me with a letter. It's always nice to hear back from students. So the CV. So there's an example of a CV. It's kind of like the resume, but formatted somewhat differently because it focuses more on education and relevant research and volunteer experiences. Not so much work, I would say, unless it's related. So if you are someone that want to go into like developmental psychology and you work with children, it might be important to put that you are a tutor for an elementary school or something like that. And then for the next part, this describes what your research experience is, like what research experiences you were involved in. So bullet points is really important. Try to keep it pretty concise. And it's very important that you start with like those action items. So you can say coded, or you can say like created a code book. You can say analyze data on SPSS or things like that. So start with those action terms. And as you can see here, we have it where it's like the location and the time. So do keep it in chronological order and make sure it's up to date with everything, with the most recent activity or experience being at the top. And then the one that happened a few years ago, a few months ago at the bottom. And don't forget to proofread because I know it's a lot of words. So you want to make sure that you don't have any typos in your CV. So this is another example of a CV. So this one also talks about education first. For a lot of CVs, the education section will be at the top. If not, it's the first thing. So for this one, for example, you can see there's an email attached, a LinkedIn. If you have a LinkedIn, you can feel free to attach that as well. For education, you can put what degree you're pursuing. And then if you have your senior thesis, you can also put that under for education as well, and then research experience. All right, so the application is submitted. Now what? So now here comes the fun part. All of your hard work is done, and now it's on the programs, it's on the schools now. Now they will contact you. So you'll start hearing back from schools. Sometimes there'll be phone interviews. A lot of the time I've seen that it's very common to do either Zoom or in person. So that might be another one. So the phone interviews or the Zoom interviews, they could be short, informal interviews. They just want to get kind of like an idea of who you are as a person, put a face to the name, learn more about maybe a senior thesis or a project you're working on, and then learn more about what you plan to do in graduate school. For the in-person interviews or a recruitment weekend, that's a lot more formal. So you want to make sure that you're in your tip-top, like your Sunday's best, and then you get invited to schools, and you're kind of there for, I would say, a full day, maybe sometimes 2 days, and you get to talk and learn with like the graduate students, the staff, the faculty. And for those types of experiences, you're basically being interviewed 24/7 because at the end, everyone will be asking like, what did you think about this person? What do you think about this student? Do you think they'll be a good fit? And honestly, what they're trying to get is just like, would you be a good fit for this program? Would you be a good fit for the advisor um, that you decided to work with or you put on your application that you wanted to work with? Also, don't be afraid to ask questions. You can get lots of great information about the program, kind of get a feel for how everything is run. So you can ask about what the expectations of a grad student is and all of those things, the coursework that you have to do. And it's really great to get an in-person or recruitment weekend interview because it could mean that you are on the short list. So either already accepted or hopefully will be accepted soon and hear from the program soon. All right, and so questions to ask. So I did mention about asking questions. So some of the questions you can ask are things about like, are students independent, more directed? That can be something for the graduate student. So like, how is the program more hands-off, hands-on type of thing? How many grad students does the researcher have? So how big is the lab? What does the lab look like? All of those things. What is the nature of the program and people? So is this more like collaborative, competitive environment? And ask current and past students pros and cons of the PI. So this might be more when you have a little bit of like that downtime and you're maybe talking to some of the grad students. And if they feel comfortable asking them like, hey, is there something that I should know beforehand about this certain faculty advisor, or anything that you would like to share with me that we haven't discussed so far? And so info about financial packages, the practicum, what does the coursework look like? What does the teaching load look like? Things like that. All right, and then making decisions. So now you're down to like deciding what's important for you and what you want out of a graduate program. So, some overrated factors are maybe the prestige of the university, the prestige of the faculty advisor, the stipend or the location, the visit as well, and it's where you got in. Some underrated factors is the research match or like the personality of faculty advisor, maybe the other students in both the area, the program, and the lab. And the departmental collaborations, maybe the funding that the department or the lab has, and then taking time off. So kind of like weighing your pros and cons and seeing what is something that is really important to you. For some people, if they are students with children and they have families, maybe location is really important and they don't want to move super far. So kind of thinking about those things and what is important to you. Um, but do make a decision quick because you don't want the programs will get very nervous if you wait until April 15th to let them know. Try to let them know beforehand. Um, and it also helps because just in case you say no to a program, they are able to let students who were waitlisted know. So that's really important. Some optional fellowships. So the National Science Foundation is something that is an optional graduate research fellowship program. The application is due in October. I believe they recently changed the criteria where I believe if you are in your first year in your program, you can apply. But I believe now if you are in your second year in your program, you can no longer apply. So do keep that in mind. There's some other pre-doctoral fellowships that you can apply to. So you can ask some of the graduate students in the labs you're interested in that you're interviewing with, or you can also ask the research or the faculty advisor if there are any fellowships that they recommend. Because it could be also like area specific. Some are more like maybe developmental or cognitive or social psychology fellowships. But these are like the national ones, the ones that are very much well known throughout graduate programs.
Okay, and I will turn back over here. So, in case you might be interested in applying to Michigan, I encourage you to Google the University of Michigan the Psychology website. We have a ton of information there about all of our different program areas. I think we cover just about every area of psychology you could possibly be interested in. We have a section that is specifically dedicated to prospective graduate students. It tells you about the application process and what it's like. We have frequently asked questions, a section about admissions, and you can also see the faculty directory. If you sort of know some of the names that you want to look at or you want to poke around by a research area, or if you're just like, I don't know, but like I want to find somebody who is interested in memory, or I want to find somebody who's interested in sexuality. We all sort of have keywords that are attached to our research interests. And so that's really a good way to see people who are of interest across the different areas. So if you're somebody who's interested in addiction, like there are some people in the clinical area who do that work. There are some people in our brain and behavior, our animal researchers who do that work. There are some people in the social area who do that work. So, it depends on what angle you want to come in on. And that also helps you think about what collaborations you could have across different faculty members. So that will be good things to know as you're putting together your personal statement. We also have a Rackham Graduate School admissions website. So in Michigan, we have sort of this two-tiered part to our application. There is the graduate school admissions that sort of manages the things that are uniform across all the departments in the university, and they also handle a lot of the funding issues. And then the program area is really what you want to focus on when you're writing that personal statement and that research statement. We have an amazing staff in our Student Academic Affairs department, of which Taylor is one of them. And if you have questions, they are like super, super helpful people, and they can always point you to the right direction. So if you're like, this seems like something that they should have on their website, but the website is so huge, I just cannot find it. Email those guys, and they are, again, just incredibly helpful, nice people, and they will be happy to help you find that. Why would you want to consider Michigan? We have 109 doctoral programs, 92 master's programs, and 30 plus certificate programs available. So you can find a way to do the research that you're interested in here. Something that I often say to new students and even to incoming faculty is that sort of the pros and cons of Michigan is that we're so big and so varied that if there is something that you need somebody's expertise on, they are here. You just have to find them. And we do have the resources to help you find them. So in addition to being big, we sort of build these communities of research areas that sort of help you to find a community and support. And so we do have a lot of tailored resources and support for students also with different needs. So we have some students who are already parents, and so who are managing family life in addition to school and research life. We have people who are veterans, people who are disabled, people who are undocumented. And so we really, again, because we have such a large community, we're able to form smaller communities within that to support folks who might have different needs and different experiences. We have a lot of different funding opportunities. So in addition to whatever funding you might have through your lab, there is funding that you can get through the Rackham Graduate School that if you have an interest that you're like, this is something I really want to pursue, but it's not something that my lab advisor has money for, there's a pot of money that you can go to, and it can help you do a small study on that and see if it would be something that you want to pursue further. And we're very big here on the commitment to inclusive excellence. Like, we really wanted to hear from people from all different perspectives and backgrounds. And again, we really try to do our best to support people and encourage everybody to be the best that they can be. We have a lot of financial support. So you do get paid to be a graduate student. It's not a lot, but it is livable. And it's one of the better packages around. There is also the Rackham Merit Fellowship, as I mentioned before. There's the graduate research grants. If your research is more international and has special needs, there's awards for that. If you want to develop a particular skill in something, you can get money that will help to pay you for to take a particular skill development course or to have a particular experience or an internship that will help you develop those transferable skills that will help you not just in the lab, but if you decide to go for a non-academic career, it will help you with that. If you want to travel to a conference, there's money for that. There's grants and public scholarship if you're really interested in communicating your science out to the public. And we also have particular training programs for that. And we also have emergency funds. Your laptop dies. You get into a car accident. We want to make sure that this doesn't interfere with your progress to your degree. And so there's funds that you can apply for to help you support you through some of those crises that just happen because life happens. So we really do try to support our students. One thing that I want to talk about in particular is the Rackham Merit Fellowship. So one, sort of nice bonus with this is it includes $1,000 relocation stipend. And then they also work with the departments to give you other funding support. I believe it's, they're restructuring the program a little bit this year, but I believe that you also get a semester of teaching relief. And it's also just a really nice thing to have on your CV then when you go on to your next step. Eligibility, you do have to be a citizen, a permanent resident, or DACA. And faculty are going to nominate you based on your application and on your personal statement, on your research statement. You don't apply for it directly. So instead, what you want to do is if this is something that you think you might be eligible for and you want to be considered for it, you want to structure your personal statement and your research statement so that it's clear how you meet these criteria, and so that the faculty can sort of help build a case for nominating you. So let me just walk through some of these. So one is you've led or substantially engaged in activities that broaden the participation of individuals with diverse backgrounds in the academic, professional, or civic realm. They do focus a bit specifically on efforts in the U.S. to reduce educational disparities based on race, ethnicity, first-generation status, family income, or gender. So basically, have you taken steps to sort of build up the research in the academic community and to broaden people's participation in that? They give the most points to people who have taken leadership roles or who have, sort of helped to originate a program. But even if you just participated in it, just go ahead and put that down anyways. Like every little bit helps. If you've experienced financial hardship as a result of your family economic circumstances. So if you're somebody who's on a Pell Grant, if you've had to work your way through undergrad because of your family economic circumstances, some of you might even be having to help support a parent or having to support a sibling. Go ahead and note that because we realize that, not only have you sort of had to bear some additional burdens, but the people who make it through those kind of experiences, you have a particular resilience, and you have, you've already demonstrated that you can handle a lot and that you're a smart thinker. And those are really good qualities to have in graduate school and in science as well. If you participated in programs that are open to students from disadvantaged backgrounds, so if any of you have participated in our summer research program, we have a diversity recruitment weekend coming up that I'll put a little information in on the end. So if you participated in those kind of programs, in this case, it's not just if you've led it, but if you've just participated in it, again, that's something to notice. And as Diana was saying before, if it's something where, I had this great summer research experience as a part of the Summer Research Opportunities Program, mention that because that's also another thing that they're looking for to see like, this is somebody who might be really interested in research and they might be really interested in coming to Michigan because they've already participated in some of our programs. So, if they hand out these fellowships, they want to hand them out to people who are likely to come and to use them. And so they are trying to assess that aspect as well. If you're a first generation U.S. citizen or you're the first generation in your family to graduate from college, also be sure to mention that because those help to qualify you. Or if you're from any kind of educational or geographic backgrounds underrepresented in your discipline, so in psychology, neuroscience, cognitive science, or membership in a federally recognized tribe. One caution that I want to give you is that, as many of you probably know, that with the current presidential administration, a lot of programs have had to sort of change their criteria and so on. One thing that you want to be careful about is that they are looking for things where you're showing your leadership or you're showing your participation. They are a little bit cautious at this point about just admitting on the basis of identity. And they are potentially being a little bit overly cautious. So if you say, like, as a Black person, as a member of the gay community, as a this, that can actually, unfortunately, get you disqualified. So just be a little bit careful to watch out for that. You want to be talking about your contribution and your participation and less about your identity, because that is the world that we currently live in under the current administration. And so that's a difference from before. And so you just want to watch out for that a little bit. So again, this is just listing the criteria again. It is a great thing to get. Again, we do have a lot of community and support. If you are first generation, you will have a lot of good company here. 23% of our graduate students are first generation students. We have a dedicated first generation student support network. We have a Students of Color of Rackham network. We also have affinity groups within the psychology department graduate students. There's over 1,000 graduate student organizations, so you will find people here whose interests and background align with yours. The other thing I want to just put on your calendar, our diversity recruitment weekend is March 26th to 27th. They're still nailing down the details. We will email you if you are on this call. We will email you with information about that when it gets ready. So finally, good luck. Again, we'll put this up on the YouTube and we'll send out these slides to folks later. These are a bunch of helpful links. You can also Google these. They're all resources on applying to graduate school, telling you which programs are open and looking for things, tracking applications, helping you get information about fine-tuning those personal statements. It's a scary process, but it's an exciting one, and we have confidence in you. You got this. So thank you all for spending your time with us this evening, and go ahead and let us know if you have questions. Raise your hands or drop them in the chat. All right. Thank you, Krishna. I'm glad you found it helpful. Also, Leah.
Hello, I wanted to ask about the GRE.
Mm-hmm.
Is it like required at every or like most institutions and stuff? Because I remember I was in the STAR program last year, and I remember there was just like there was emphasis on it, but it was like less emphasis. So
Yes.
I was wondering if it's just generally like I know the SAT for like colleges in general, like that emphasis has also gone down in years. So what does that look like on like is it required for most or is it not? Like, could I get more details on that?
Yeah, sure. So this is one where I would say you'll have to look a little bit at the specific programs. So I would say at this point, most top programs do not require it. Although, again, the world has been changing lately, as you know. And so the pendulum has swung back a little bit in the other direction. Yeah, so like there were some programs, like I think MIT was one that had it, and then they didn't have it for a couple of years, and then they've decided to put it back. There's pros and cons, to it either way. There are concerns about the potential for it being biased. It does cost money to take, which is a concern. On the other hand, it can also be a chance for people who maybe came from a smaller school or didn't have a chance to get the research experience just because they were to sort of like show their stuff and show that they can really shine. So, yeah, I would say, what you may want to do, especially since there is an expense to taking it, what you might want to do is just sort of like check out the schools and programs that you want to do first and then see like, okay, do they have it? And if not, then I can just skip this. Michigan will not even, like, if you send the scores in, Michigan won't even send them to the departments.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they want to, like, they're very insistent that we really focus on people, like sort of for who they are and for their research experience and interests. So,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. That was really helpful. Thank you. The whole talk was really helpful too. Thank you so
great.
much.
Um, I did see there was a question about the FAFSA. I don't know if Taylor's still on. She can probably actually answer that better, but I don't think they ask about that because, again, like the financial aid, particularly at least for our program, is very different. It's not financial aid because one of the great things about graduate school, at least in the higher ranked programs, is that you aren't paying, we are paying you. And so that's also why, like, you may have noticed when Diana was talking about contacting the professors and sending your CV and something, like, in some ways, yes, this is education, but it is also a job. And so the financial aid part is less relevant in that way.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Can I also add a follow-up question?
Sure.
So does that also include the master programs at Michigan?
No, the master's programs, those generally will be paid programs. There is a version of the RMF that you can get for the master's programs. So if you think that you have that you might be in a situation where you could qualify that for the financial hardship aspect, what I would do is, if you're going to have, do you know which master's program you were considering?
I actually was considering the accelerated master psychology program.
Okay. So what I would do then is I would chat with the person who is your potential advisor and talk with them about helping to construct, because you do also have to do the personal statement and so on for that, and talk to them about nominating you for, I think that one they call the Rackham Merit Award. The other thing with the AMDP is that we don't usually let you teach both semesters, but you can GSI in one of the semesters, and that will pay for one of them. And Taylor's wants to pipe in here as well, it sounds like.
Oh yeah, hi. If you wanted to set up an appointment with me, I'm the program coordinator for the Accelerated Master's program, but what all that Sydney said was correct. So, but if you wanted to talk more about that program specifically, feel free to message me or set up an appointment.
Okay, great. So I graduated from U of M in 2024, and I'm currently a preschool teacher, and I also volunteer at a psychology lab at U of M. So that's where I feel like I'm not sure how to get your contact information. Can I send you an email? Because I still have my UMich email that I use.
Yeah, you absolutely can. I will say that accelerated master's program for U of M it's connected to while you're doing your undergrad at U of M. So that wouldn't be an option, but feel free to still email me if you wanted to discuss other options, or we do have other Star Scholar sessions too. I can throw it in the chat.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, and if you email the psych.saa email before, I'm pretty sure that Taylor's on that list as well. So it will get to the right person if you use that psych.saa@umich email.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions folks have?
Hi, yeah, I was just gonna ask, just who could I reach out to learn more about like a particular research area's curriculum or structure for the program, like further than what's on the website? If that's all right.
So I would say after you took a look at what is on the website, probably your best bet, it might be either to reach out to the faculty members who you think you might be interested in and start building a relationship with them or some of the grad students. Or each area also has an area chair. And that, like, they're sort of the person who oversees the whole area. And so they can tell you a little bit more about the curriculum and so on too.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate the session. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a great night.
You as well. Thank you.
All right. Any more questions? Going once, going twice. All right. Well, have a great night, everybody. Thank you very much. Oh, I see one more. Is there one in the chat? No, just a thank you. All right. Well, have a great night. And again, feel free to get in touch with us if you do have any more questions.